South Africa's economy contracted in the first quarter. GDP fell 0.1% in the first 3 months of the year. This is below expectations for growth of 0.1% and is a slowdown from an increase of 0.3% in the fourth quarter. The slump comes as 6 industries recorded negative growth. Amongst them is manufacturing, mining and construction. South Africa's fiscal stance will stay balanced under a coalition government. That's according to Treasury's Director General Duncan Peterson. The ANC has up to 2 weeks to agree to a coalition pact or another form of power-sharing arrangement with other political parties after its share of the vote dropped below 50% in the national elections. MultiChoice and Canal Plus have released a joint circular. This details plans and dates for the proposed buyout of the DStv operator at 125 Rand per share. The circular reiterates the French media giant's intention to list on the JSE and provides some idea of how the companies plan to handle foreign ownership restrictions on broadcasters. The deal is still subject to several regulatory approvals, including the Competition Tribunal, the JSE, the Takeover Regulation Panel and other government authorities such as ICASA. Shareholders who want to participate can do so when the offer opens at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and the companies hope for the deal to become wholly unconditional by no later than the 8th of April 2025. Rainbow Chicken will debut on the JSE on June the 26th. This follows RCL shareholders' approval of the listing and unbundling of the group's poultry operation. Rainbow's pre-listing statement is expected to be released on June the 10th. The move will allow RCL to focus on its branded foods business, which includes Nola mayonnaise, sorghum porridge and maize meal. It will also minimize the effects of a commodity business in which profits and losses are subject to cyclical fluctuations. British American Tobacco has forecast a downbeat first half. The cigarette maker expects adjusted profit from operations to slip by low single digits during the period. That's as it faced ongoing macroeconomic pressures, particularly in the US market. And the firm also had to deal with the negative effects of the growing illicit vapor segment. But the group is hopeful that the second half of the year will be better, and so it expects to meet full-year guidance. Momentum Metropolitan says it showed resilience and achieved a good operating performance in the 9 months to end March. During the period, the insurance firm grew new business 20%. Looking ahead, the company says its operating environment is expected to remain under pressure. That's as it highlighted weak economic growth, potential political uncertainty following the election, and pressures on disposable income as key risks. But Momentum says it will counter this by staying focused on driving new business volumes, improving its sales mix, and reducing its cost base. Pan-African Resources has inked a wage deal with the National Union of Mine Workers. The agreement covers its Barberton mines and spans a 5-year period. During that time, workers will receive annual increases of around 5.3% per annum. Commenting on the development, CEO Kobus Loot says the deal ensures stability at its operations over the coming years. Further afield, Johnson & Johnson has been ordered to pay $260 million to an Oregon woman who said she developed a deadly cancer linked to asbestos exposure from inhaling the company's talc powder. Let's take a look at the detail in this package report.
Johnson & Johnson was ordered to pay $260 million to a woman who said she developed mesothelioma, a deadly cancer linked to asbestos exposure, from inhaling the company's talc powder. The verdict was found by an Oregon jury and comes as the company continues to pursue a proposed $6.48 billion settlement of most talc-related lawsuits against it through a pre-packaged bankruptcy. The jury's award includes $60 million in compensatory damages and $200 million in punitive damages. It also includes damages for both the plaintiff and her husband. Plaintiff Kyung Lee was last year diagnosed with mesothelioma at age 48. Lee alleged that she inhaled asbestos-tainted talc over more than 30 years, beginning when her mother used it on her as a baby. J&J maintains that its talc products do not contain asbestos or cause cancer, and that decades of scientific studies support their safety. A top executive at the company said it would appeal and was confident it would get the verdict reversed. At the trial, a lawyer for J&J said that Lee's illness was likely caused by exposure to asbestos used at a factory near where she grew up. J&J faces lawsuits from more than 61,000 plaintiffs over talc. The vast majority are by women with ovarian cancer, with only a small minority involving people with mesothelioma. The company has settled most of its mesothelioma cases. J&J needs the support of 3/4 of the remaining plaintiffs to get approval for a bankruptcy settlement that would end the litigation, shut off future cases and prevent people from opting out of the deal. Courts rejected 2 previous efforts by the company to resolve the talc cases in bankruptcy.
And persistent heavy rain led to widespread flooding in the southern region of Germany over the weekend. Here's our reporter Ndawuleng Lechela and the DW team for an update on where things are at.
Well, Zinati, the floods are expected to continue until Wednesday or even Thursday. Several streams and rivers have burst their banks and flooded entire towns and villages. Joining us with more of the detail is DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu in Berlin. Chiponda, thanks so much for joining us today. Now, as we get started, just tell us how bad the situation is.
Thanks for having me. Well, the focus right now is, of course, on saving lives. 4 deaths have been confirmed so far, and we know that thousands have had to be evacuated from their homes. So there's a lot of damage, not just to homes, but also to local infrastructure, including roads. Farmers also fear massive damages. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited the affected region on Monday and said the government will do everything to ensure that help can be provided more quickly. And he also warned against neglecting the task of stopping man-made climate change. Scholz called on people in Germany to increasingly adapt to natural disasters, especially floods. Now, nearly 3 years ago, dozens of people died in the last major flood in Germany in 2021. That caused damages worth more than 8 billion euros for insurers.
Let's talk about the response. What has that been like?
Well, there are, of course, different responses about how to be best prepared for such events in the future, in particular when it comes to insurance. The state premier of one of the affected regions, Bavaria, has said that compulsory flood insurance is a solution. And the other federal states also appear to agree with that. But the federal government sees things differently. It says that that should be the responsibility of the federal states. Insurance against damages caused by natural disasters is voluntary, but often very expensive. And there are some high-risk areas where no coverage is available. But there are some concerns about the cost of a mandatory natural disaster insurance. The Property Owners Association has also spoken out against it. It is instead calling for more protective measures against flooding, including bans on building in areas that are at high risk.
Lastly, what do insurers make of all of this?
Well, we will have to wait until the water has receded for insurers to start getting an idea of just how, what the extent of the damage is in terms of numbers. But the industry is already facing challenges. The frequency of natural disasters in recent years has made it harder for insurers to rely on their models. Climate change has made such events, of course, more frequent, and it is more difficult to forecast their frequency. Now, that has led to a property insurance crisis in some parts of the world. And insurers have also pretty much pulled back from offering coverage for natural disasters in places that are at high risk for natural disasters, such as flooding. Globally, there were more than 37 extreme weather-related insurance losses that exceeded 1 billion euros last year, according to one estimate. So that was, of course, a record. And here in Germany, one of the bigger questions will now be whether insurers can be incentivized to provide insurance and coverage, of course, in areas that are prone to natural disasters. Many may very well, of course, just pull out of offering coverage in such areas because they do not see the benefit to their bottom lines.
Let's leave it there. Always appreciate your insights. That was Chiponda Chimbelu from Deutsche Welle.